back up here in the nosebleed seats. Thanks, Ceann Corla. Look, I've raised this issue consistently with the Minister, both in the Chamber when I've had an opportunity at the Education Committee, and again, I'll continue to raise it, as I think it's an issue of contention in Cork, and it needs to be addressed urgently. And any kind of clarification that the Minister could give today would be most welcome. So, look, initially I'd just like to kind of give a couple of facts maybe that detail the situation that we're in Cork. There are currently in area CH04, as per the HSC designation, there are currently over 1,000 children awaiting assessment of needs. A high proportion of these are from Cork, and a significant number would require a place in a special needs school. The nearest special school in Skolcara opened in 2014. This was a fantastic purpose-built facility, and it currently has an enrolment of 71 students, but with a capacity of 72, so that's essentially full. Just following on from that, there's also 22 children in Cork who do not have a place in a special school at present, and are not in any school, and are most likely receiving home tuition. In addition to those 22 children, there are 40 in special class placement, but who remain on the waiting list for a special school. So that's nearly 60-odd children in Cork who currently don't have a place in a special school that are entitled to one. In response to a previous inquiry I made, there may be capacity for enrolment of 4 to 6 children in Oireachtas in September 2021. But that's it. That leaves almost 56 children or so as of now with no special school place come September 2021. Minister, we know from our experience with COVID that these students suffer the most in the absence of the ability to get to school. What can we say to the 56 children I've mentioned above who have no prospect of returning to any school for the next academic year? I know that some work has been done to progress the idea of a new special school. I welcome the Department, and in particular COPE's input to this process. I note that a report was submitted to the Department of Education and Science on October 12th last in relation to a technical report on a nearby building, Montenotte House. That technical report surmised that the building was not able to deliver much needed places in the short term. Well, I haven't seen the contents of that technical report. That Montenotte House, that building is a protected building and most likely unsuitable to cater for lifts and maybe widening of doors and things like that for people with disability. So I would imagine that that has put fierce restrictions on that building's ability to deliver for much needed places. So I understand that a further meeting, Minister, took place on November 3rd. I'm not entirely sure of the outcome of that meeting. Perhaps you could elaborate for me. And I suppose I'm led to believe, just from speaking with people locally, that in response to that technical report that COPE submitted to the Department back before Christmas last year, that in addition to stating that the Montenotte House building was unsuitable to cater for the special education children, that COPE essentially offered part of its own building, part of its office block on site for conversion. And I was wondering, if that is the case, could the Minister clarify where we're at with that process? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy O'Sullivan. Mr. Madigan, please.
I would like to thank Deputy O'Sullivan for raising this issue, and he's right, he does consistently raise it with me, both in the Chamber and at committee, and he's right to do so because it's a very important issue for children with special needs in County Cork. And this opportunity gives me a chance to outline provision that we're giving for children with special needs in general, and also obviously in Cork. The Department's policy is that children with special educational needs should be included where possible and appropriate in mainstream places with additional supports provided. But in circumstances where children with special educational needs require more specialised interventions, special school or special class places are provided for. And this year, the state will invest over 20% of its total education budget, or €2 billion, in supporting children with special needs. And as a result, even though of course there is more progress to be made, the numbers of special education teachers, special needs assistants, special class and special school places are at unprecedented levels. Since 2011, the number of special classes in mainstream schools has increased by almost 235%, from 508 to 1,836 for the 2020-2021 school year, and 197 new special classes have been established nationally for the 2020-21 school year. Budget 21 also provided for an additional 235 special class teachers this year, supporting the provision of over 1,200 additional special class places. Also, an additional 990 special needs assistants, which means that this year over 18,000 SNAs will be available for allocation to schools. An additional 145 special education teachers, which brings the total provision to 13,765 in mainstream primary and post-primary schools. And lastly, an additional 23 special education teachers to be allocated to meet increased enrolments in special schools. And notwithstanding the extent of this investment, I am acutely aware that there are some parts of the country where increases in population and other issues have led to concerns regarding a shortage of school places, like in Cork. And it is accepted that additional specialist education places are urgently required in the Cork area. The Department's school building programme is focused on providing the additional school places to ensure that every child, including children with special needs, has a school place. And this includes opening new schools and extending existing schools in areas where more school places are needed to meet the growing number of children living in these areas. We know, Deputy, that the National Council for Special Education has responsibility for coordinating and advising on the education provision for children nationwide, and it has well-established structures in place for engaging with schools and parents. And the NCSE seeks to ensure that schools in an area can, between them, cater for all children who have been identified as needing special education places. And the NCSE continues to work and support families who have a recommendation for and are seeking to secure a special school placement. And there have been a number of meetings between the Department, the NCSE and relevant stakeholders, including patron bodies, having taken place to consider how the demand for special school placements in Cork can be met. And this engagement, I can assure you, is ongoing. There's continued engagement. I'm aware of the fact that, or the NCSE is aware of the fact that there are 20 who are not in school, who require a special school place. I think you mentioned 22, Deputy O'Sullivan, so it's 20 or 22, but these children currently get home tuition, but that's not satisfactory, and all options are being explored, including ascertaining the availability of any accommodation in existing schools that could be used as a short-term solution, the availability of lands where temporary accommodation could be provided, and the option of a green field site where new schools should be constructed.
Many thanks, Minister. Deputy O'Sullivan.
I thank the Minister for her comments, and I suppose initially I also meant to acknowledge, I suppose, the good work that has been done in special needs education over the last decade in particular. You know, we do have more SNAs than ever before. We have more special education teachers than we've ever had. But I suppose in those figures, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we now have more children than ever getting a diagnosis of some description on the spectrum, so that needs to be acknowledged too, and hence the pressure that we're actually under in terms of facilitating those school places in special schools in particular. Minister, look, I welcome your comments, but at the same time, if there's any specific comment you can give specific to Cork in terms of those meetings between the NCSE, COPE and the Department of Education, I would welcome any clarification you could give. I suppose initially from the initial technical report that was compiled, there was three kind of options looked at: short, medium and long term. And I understand that the Montenotte House option is obviously the short-term option, they're looking to convert that building possibly. Now that seems to have been ruled out, at least for the moment, in terms of that technical report that was submitted. Could you give any clarification on what the medium or long-term options might be, whether it be a greenfield site? Or, as I said, I am aware of a situation that COPE has essentially offered its office and administrative buildings in Montenotte for conversion for classrooms, and that could facilitate up to 25 to 30 children, I've been informed. And if the Minister is aware of that, could she comment on it? Because as a short-term fix, and it's not just about doing a short-term fix just for the sake of it, but in terms of September 2021 and that intake, it's obviously, it's not only is it the quickest solution, it'll be on campus with the existing facilities. For me, it actually makes total sense to explore that option. If the Minister is aware of that, I'd welcome any comments.
Thank you. Deputy Minister, to conclude.
Thank you, Deputy. There are short-term options being considered. For example, if any other vacant accommodation is available in an existing school in Cork City, and also a number of building projects in Cork are currently being re-examined for any potential capacity. But the process is ongoing. It includes engagement with local patrons and the ETB, and there's also options, as you mentioned, for the provision of a special school in Cork, and they're also being examined. And you'll be aware, Deputy, that last autumn there were meetings with the Department, the NCSE, the School Management and the Cope Foundation, which is part of Scoil Ashling, a special school located at Bornamina Road in Ballytemple in Cork, to explore the expansion of Scoil Ashling and other options to facilitate the enrolment of children currently without a school placement. My understanding is that there will be a further meeting in February to explore this even further and to consider whether this is actually going to be feasible. But I want to reassure the Deputy that my department will continue to support the NCSE and schools through the provision of the necessary funding and capital investment to ensure that all children are successful in accessing an education. I know it's a particular area in Cork where a concentrated effort is required, both by the department, by the NCSE and indeed by myself, and it's really, really important that every child with special needs is catered for, and it's simply not acceptable that if we have children waiting for a school place, that place isn't available. And I can assure you, Deputy, that I will be, because I know you've consistently raised this on many different occasions, and I know that there is this meeting happening in February. Hopefully there will be progress from that, so that those particular children, particularly the 20 who are not in a school and who are receiving and availing of the home tuition scheme, will be able to get a school place. And obviously there are other children who have a recommendation for a school place, and these are currently in special classes, so they need to be looked at as well. Thank you, Ceann Comhairle.
Thank you, Deputy